All right. Good morning, Joe Wenberg, Bluebird Semaphore, YouTube channel. Of course, that's my YouTube channel. And let me take a moment right now to give a shout out to YouTube, because if it wasn't for YouTube, people like myself with opinions that are strikingly different than the opinions of the masses actually get a chance to express their views in a somewhat meaningful fashion. It's not like I'm talking to somebody at a bar over a beer. I'm assuming two or three people might actually listen to my postings in world history. And this will be World History for Ordinary People, June 5th, 2024. And I'm going to continue to talk about the Far East, because that's a bottomless pit, the Far East. And I'm still reading that book by Paul Reed on the Far East, and it's still one of the best books on the subject I've come across. There's no baloney in it. He's just attacks every single aspect of the relationships between the powers and China and Japan, although by this time Japan is one of the powers. I didn't give you 2 cents for all of them, but listen. The book, but I moved into another book a little bit, and the other book is this one right here, The China Mirage by James Bradley, a person we might be familiar with, you might be familiar with. He's had some successful books, and probably, documentaries that got up on the TV, things like Flags of Our Father and a few others. And right away, when I get in this book, I could see this guy is on the same page as I am. He has identified the comings and goings in China during the 19th century, and assumably beyond. I haven't got beyond yet, but assumably beyond, as just an absolute smear on the character of all the powers. And when I say the powers, of course, I'm talking about Britain, France, Germany, United States, Netherlands, so on and so forth, and eventually Japan, the powers. Well, so Bradley has identified with, and he's starting with the Opium War. And if you don't know it, it's at one point in the 19th century, say 1830s, the powers figured out that they could sell opium to the masses in China, and they could make a lot of money. And the Chinese government wasn't too upset about all of this, because basically the opium addiction would weaken people who might be set up against the government, and it would weaken them, and so there would be less to be heard from the potential revolutionaries, peasants, and poor people, and so on, because they'd be on their wooden platforms smoking dope. Now, that's in the beginning. China eventually does change its attitude And China definitely, later on, does not want this opium stuff killing her people. Definitely does not. But the rest of the powers want to continue it because they can make a lot of money. He points out right away that one of the main figures in all of this is, I think it's Warren Delano. What is it? Delano's. But you know the name. It's the name closely associated with the Roosevelts. As a matter of fact, it's said over and over that, Eleanor had the money, and she got it from that side of the family, Delano. And this guy, as a young man, went over to China, saw the potentials, how to make money, basically by breaking every law he could break over there, and winds up selling tons of dope to the Chinese people. And it is the gold and silver that enabled the powers to exist back in the day. It gets really bad, and at one time, the then emperor, and I think it was the emperor of China, writing from Peking, I believe, sends a letter to, I think they called it a circular, I'm not sure, but he sent some written word to Queen Vic. She was 20 years old at the time. And he tells Queen Vic, hey, listen, I'm the top dog over here in China. You're the top dog over there in where you are, and we got this problem. We got to solve it together. He tells her what he's got to do. She's got to disallow all trafficking in opium, and he's quite to the point. He says, because if you don't, any ship's captains or other pirates that he and his Chinese police find selling and smuggling the opium, those people will be beheaded. He says that right in the letter to Queen Vic, the 20-year-old know nothing, who was put on a throne because, these countries that live by monarchy are so stupid. They're going to put a 20-year-old girl to lead the British Empire. Sure, she had all her people standing behind her, her advisors, but they weren't going to advise her anything that might lead to their own decapitation, They feared the monarch. So anyway, she reads the letter, of course, and her reaction, this is stability talking now, right? Her reaction is to send a British fleet over to the Far East and bombard the Chinese East Coast into oblivion. That was her solution to a letter written by the Chinese emperor. And of course, that didn't win her, the British Empire, or the powers any fans. And if anything, it made the Chinese more sure of themselves that they were going to eradicate this opium monster from their midst. So the point is, Delano isn't the only dude doing this opium thing. As a matter of fact, many names that we know of who are the big financial names in this country's history, names like Perkins, Lowe, Forbes, and so on, they all made a ton of money out of the opium deal. And they took that money and they made themselves more powerful back home by investing it in stuff like steel and railroads and so on. They got every, I'm going to exaggerate here, but it seems like every Ivy League university they put their money in. So the Ivy League universities had their backing, their money coming, at least in part, from the dope trade that was killing people. So you want to go to an Ivy League school, go right ahead, you know. But the book, now I just stopped reading at the point where he's talking about the opium trade and what was going on. So I'm not even started yet. I'm sure I'm going to find out a lot more about what went on behind the scenes over there. But I continue to read the Reid book, R-E-I-D, and it's just nonstop atrocities, nonstop, either by the powers or Japan on the Chinese. It's not quite a nation yet, but it's an entity, and it's becoming a nation. Kind of in the part where you leave the box of rebellion, you get into the warlords. Now, there were warlords throughout Chinese history, but essentially China was all cut up into provinces, and each one had their political and military structure, and they would fight a lot. So I'm into this thing, and they're trying to forge a nation over there. You got Sun Yat-sen or something like that, and actually, and many other names. Now, I haven't come across yet, and in a way I have in that book, the Mao Tse-tung guy, but what I have come across is Chiang Kai-shek and his part in that they're trying to establish a stable Republican-like country in China. Now, this is another one of my bones of contentions. The powers say, all right, China, you got to make yourself into a modern state modeled after us. See, you got to model yourself after us. We don't care what you want. You're going to become this phony baloney democracy. That's what you're going to be, you know? And if you're not, we'll bomb you into extinction. Don't worry about it. And why? Because we can. So I'm kind of in that part of the book. I've been through the whole mid-19th to the end of the 19th to the beginning of the 20th. And the parts played by these various powers. And Japan has a big role here. She has her hands in many aspects of the development of China, including her own grab for Manchuria. Now, Russia has come down out of the cold and darkness to want to grab Manchuria too. And Russia does it by starting to build a railroad slicing through Manchuria, which is going to take Russia, from the Amur region, that's a river, slicing through Manchuria and getting the railroad to go down near the northern part of Korea. And all of this is going on all at once. You have the Japanese-Russian war, I forget what they call that Japan beat the pants off of Russia. Also at approximately the same time, you have the Sino-Japanese war, which is essentially Japan making it clear that she was not going to be held back in her grab for Manchuria. The war and the other one that I talked about, the one with the Russians, they all take place on Chinese land. We call it Manchuria, but it's Chinese. It was Chinese land. It still is. But no concern for the people who live there, none whatsoever. I mean, that's never on the agenda. Never. The people be damned, as very well they were. Starvation, disease, blown to bits. The people got the worst of everything, and they always did, and they always will. So, I wanted to bring this book to everyone's attention before I slip up and forget about it. Although I don't think that's likely. And the fact that I haven't read that much of it means I don't really have too much to say. But the idea that these established families that we see as the pillars of our civilization were nothing more than a bunch of drug smugglers. You know, if you or I tried to do what they did, we would be in jail and perhaps, you know, finding ourselves in the hot seat, so to speak. Now, these people, like I said, who we think of as the pillars of our homegrown civilization, and we have so much reverence for. I mean, we only have that reverence because it's never been told to us. The people, what these folks were all about back then, how they didn't give a hoot for the people that were being smashed as a result of opium addiction. As a matter of fact, none other than John Quincy Adams got up, and this is out of this book, I believe, okay? Gets up in front of an auditorium somewhere. I don't know if he was speaking to Congress or whatever, and he says, listen, wait, it's this opium thing. Don't make it out any more than it is. This is not a similar situation that we had with the Boston Tea Party. This is after the Chinese had been aggressively getting rid of the bales of opium, and of course causing great financial harm to the powers, so similar to what happened with the tea. But John Quincy Adams gets up and says, wait a second, this is not the same thing. The Boston Tea Party, that wasn't the reason for the American Revolution. That was just a sideshow. So is this opium thing. We're not going to go to war because of this. No, come on. There was a little opium war going on. He says, this is just a sideshow. And there's nothing wrong with being in the business of opium selling. It's a business. These guys must have been foresaw or foreseen the movie The Godfather, where they're trying to promote distribution of drugs with the other families. And the one guy says, it's just business. It's just business. Doesn't matter that people's lives are at stake. So, and everywhere I turn these days, if I'm reading history, I'm seeing one atrocity or the other. Look at the Japanese with their inroads into mainland China, pretty much all over the place, whether it was southern China, northern China, wherever. And of course, you get the very popular, very well known rape of Nanking, where the Japanese went in there and supposedly killed hundreds of thousands of people. And numbers like that, hundreds of thousands, I mean, they were all the time. Hundreds of thousands of people being killed left and right. Left and right. I'm sure there probably was a reason at one time to change the name of the Yellow River to the Red River. All the blood that was released into the earth. And all of this being done in the name of commerce. Commerce. China had things called factories. First, you would let a few traders, foreign barbarians, as she liked to call them, a little access, a little trade. She'd cut off a small piece of an island and say, you can work out of that little piece. They called it a factory. And of course, we didn't like it, the powers. We never liked it. And we never liked the attitude of the Chinese, who thought the powers were barbarians, backward people. She always thought that way about them. Any kind of interaction, the barbarians, the powers, they would have to kowtow to the Chinese person on the other side of the negotiation. Now, the books, when you read about it, like in the Reed book, you kind of get the sense that the authors are thinking that that's a bad thing. Well, first of all, it's these people's country, their nation, the Chinese. If it's their rule that when you come and see the big guy, you have to kowtow, well, I think you should do their rule or don't go there. I mean, I wouldn't go there. There's no way I'm kowtowing to anybody. I don't care how much money's involved. But that wasn't the case of the traders and the merchants. They would lick the shoes on those people to get in and get the business. They got to get the business. So they get the business. And I'm coming up with the lack of continuity in my thinking right now. Like I said, trade was the big thing. It is now, and it was then, the sacred cow. Anything in the name of business, commerce, anything was acceptable. Quite frankly, we had a ton of missionaries over there. First of all, I don't know how they could stand being there. Supposedly they're supposed to be Christians and godlike and all that stuff, but how they could stand it. And to me, and I'm not denigrating the person at all, because there's no denigration there, but I wonder how Pearl S. Buck managed to, and her family, to stay there for so long in that hideous mass we know as China. Other than she must have been extremely, extremely motivated by a sincere hope of having a positive effect on these people. But you read it over and over that the Chinese families that got converted, 9 times out of 10, when their particular district was being run over by this rebel or that rebel force, those people who had turned to Christianity were slaughtered first. 9 times out of 10. So, like I said, no matter where you turn, it's a terrible story. The history of mankind is a terrible story. I don't know why I got into this 5 years ago, and it's a terrible story. I should have got into tracing the roots of baseball. It probably would have been less hideous to me. Of course it would have been. But and just everywhere you look, you know, one entity is beating up on another entity, always and forever. However, I'm going to keep looking because now I'm in it. I'm in the look. I'm in the look program. Looky, see how we kill. That'll be the name of my next book. Looky, see how we kill. All right, so I brought you up to speed that this is going to be the next plunge. I want to get done with Reed and his book on Far East Asia because, like I said, I think it's one of the better books I've read on the subject, so I want to make sure I finish it. I'll plunge into this a little at a time and a few other things. I know yesterday I did a video on the backyard, which I call the jungle, and it might, if you're into gardening at all, you might look at it, and maybe we'll get some ideas at a different method of growing plants, vegetables in your backyard. Maybe you'll get a different idea, some different ideas. You probably won't go all out the way I did, but you never know. You never know. All right. Thank you for listening. I'm not going to go on anymore. I got things to do today. I'm very busy, and I'm going to sign off. Although as busy as I am, I did get my piano practice in, which I haven't been doing for a few days, but I did get it in already. So that's behind me. Now I got to go take care of some things in the garden, and I got to eat breakfast yet. Yeah, I got to do things. Okay, bye. Bluebird Semaphore signing off.